last week, courtesy of that parliamentary committee sitting in which the National Council of Sports was able to present the budget framework paper for the financial year 2026-2027. After that, there was an attempt from the FUFA president to present a separate document. That wasn't successful. Why? Because the State Minister for Sport, Honorable Peter Ogwang, interjected saying, look, I don't have that document. And so is the National Council of Sports chairman and the General Secretary. And ultimately, they were asked to step out and harmonize that position. Since then, the discussion has been, or the resolution has been, that they did meet, and the National Council of Sports will pick that document from FUFA and incorporate their needs into their own framework paper. And that has been going on throughout the entire week, but also the details of that document that the FUFA president tried to present finally coming out. There's been bits of that, and I know many of you are watching the show and eager to know what else is contained in that document. I can confirm that there is information in that document that is going to be shared on the show tonight. But before we get to the information contained in that document, I'll start with you, Emanzi. You did see that, I don't know whether to call it a clash or a misunderstanding between the FUFA president and the State Minister for Sport in that budget committee. What did you read from that?
Well, I read the part where you say that you have two people that should be pushing in the same direction, but appear before your committee and they look like they are on two different pages. And I think that if you're a football person and you're interested in a conversation to try and lure government to give you more money, I believe that the only way that can happen is through National Council of Sports. And you can say that they looked a bit shabby, both parties, that when one comes out with something that is not expected from the other party, you all end up looking shabby. And I think that's what it looked like, at least from the outside, looking from the outside, that NCS go into that meeting expecting to have full knowledge of whatever is going to be presented. And then there's a document that is coming up, and neither the minister nor the General Secretary of the National Council of Sports is aware. So that's the only way that I can look at it, that there might be good things coming from the other side. Okay. There might be things that maybe should have come in that document, but the presentation at the end of the day, I think that's what made it look shabby. Okay,
I've just been reminded by our producer that I kept speaking about the disagreement and assume that everyone got to see that clip, but maybe there is someone who is wondering what we are speaking about. So luckily for us, we do have that video clip that captures what happened in that committee. So we'll have it, and then we'll return and continue with the discussion.
Let's have your document circulated among us. Is that all for FUFA? Okay.
Actually, as we prepare to get the documents, I'll try to be as clear and clear as possible for football in Uganda. And it is the one that is affiliated to FIFA, the 27, together with the other East African countries. And there are challenges that need short-term and long-term strategies. Dear members, on the 10th of September, out of the motion by the Minister of State for Education and Sports, Honorable Peter, while paying tribute to the outstanding performance of the team in Chan, there was a resolution of Parliament that the development...
So, Mr. Watson, can you help the President of FUFA? We wanted the document, seriously. As presenting, let's get that right up. Because the
National Council of Sports. And I expected such a presentation would have gotten knowledge of National Council of Sports, even if I assume that I've been busy with you, Mr. Chairman. It's surprising that as you hear, the FUFA president, who is a colleague, is making a presentation which even I do not have a copy. And I've just asked the chair of council, which is directly mandated to supervise these federations, whether they are privy to the presentation. But because since this Parliament, it will be prudent that as affairs of sports are concerned, all of us as stakeholders are brought on board. And I'm happy that the motion which I moved has been quoted in the presentation. Unfortunately, myself who moved the motion is not having anything. So, Mr.
So what
Chairman,
we do, let's do it this way before.
I want to request that, with your permission, that we have a copy of this presentation. Secondly, with your permission, that before decisions are made, allow me to go back to the ministry, harmonize and discuss this with the Minister of Education and Sports. Because whatever brought here has come from the consultation from the Ministry of Education and Sports and top management. So I want to kindly request that, Mr. Chairman, through you, this be considered. I thank you so much.
Yeah, I was proposing this way, that you can get out for some 5 minutes, consult as we move with other entities. I think that's very prudent.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, Honorable.
Okay, there you have it. That is what unfolded in Parliament's Line Committee for Education and Sports. So that's what will be forming our discussion this very evening. Andrew, you looked at that with a smiling face. I don't know if it's a smile of shock, if it's a smile of... what do you make of that?
Oh, good. When I see the president of FUFA start that, reading out that statement, in complete knowledge that the minister is not aware, the GS, National Council of Sports, is not aware, and also we have a copy of the same motion that Ogwang is talking about, written to the Speaker of Parliament, and copied in is the Deputy Speaker of Parliament and Dr. Bernard Ogwell, the General Secretary of NCS. The Parliament, Minister, please. The Parliament has the approved copy, received copy and signed. NCS do not have an approved copy or signed. Now they go on.
Even when the FUFA president claimed.
Claimed.
Yes.
Now, finally, the copy reaches GS on 28th January. The one of Parliament went on 9th January. Then this one arrives at GS on 20, after that meeting that we've just seen. Yeah. So for me, what I read in that, one is complete impunity from the FUFA president, disrespect of how things should be done, which is not new. If you remember, not long ago, the league format, remember the league format? Where the CEOs got the first communication and they were like, what's happening? Sometime in July, first meeting, and then we are still in Chan. Then there's a claim, oh, they released it and we've been, engaging stakeholders, which wasn't right. Now the engagement of stakeholders start after we raise all these issues. So it's one sustained impunity from the president and how he treats or looks at people around him. So you stop and wonder, did he really think it would go past that stage to the minister, rather past the minister and then CS, and then Parliament just approve? For context, the Speaker of Parliament is the wife of the president of FUFA. So this whole thing, smack of total impunity for me, total disregard of processes, total disregard of people who are in the game, ministry, NCS, FUFA and all. And why? You remember the league format, it was fast tracked, like, guys, it must happen now or never. So why is this being fast tracked to the extent of sidestepping the Ministry of Education and Sports and the regulator, NCS? So for now, that's all I can say. That's what I see, that's what I read when I see that exchange.
Okay. Also, maybe for more context, is that if you watch the final of the AFCON, you must have seen the FUFA president, Engineer Moses Magogo, and the sports minister, Ogwang, receiving the flag.
Receiving is the word?
Yeah, go.
Kenya and Tanzania.
Because we are the next hosts of AFCON
2027.
So what I'm trying to say is that they had a lot of time together. So there is no way they should have looked like they are meeting for the first time in years.
And just before Clive comes in, a lot of time together, but also this is a continuation of the friction from hosting of CHAN. Those of us who know the details.
I think I was going to get to that because I was going to ask the question, and I want Clive to come in, but just before he does, there is a question I want to ask that clearly when you look at that, it's not started right there.
No,
it's been brewing. It's been brewing.
Tables have been banged at the AFCON Secretariat at Lugogo. Insults have been hurled because the office of the First Lady, Minister of Education and Sports, of course, you had that Dennis Mujimba there leading, guiding the Secretariat. And then you had FUFA. So FUFA did not have the control of the big budget. It was controlled by the Secretariat, which is, you have the Minister of Education and Sports. And so there was a feeling of, this is our thing. We brought it. You guys are getting in the way. So the friction has been there. And it's just continuing. So we wonder whether we'll be at the... Remember, we need to be at the same page of East Africa. Now we still need to sort this.
Ugandan's page.
And then you get to the crane, the elephant, the what, to even get a mascot, which East Africa can't still get. So it's just a continuation, and for me, it's, like I said, a complete disregard of processes and impunity.
All right. We have watched that, but the questions do linger on what exactly is entailed in that document that the FUFA president attempted to read. There's been a few things here and there, the details that have been put out, but luckily for us tonight, we have the document expert. We have the document expert, so we spare these minutes for him. Clive Chaze, what is entailed in that document that has now become a very famous document?
Well, for starters, I don't think I've read anything rich this year. Of course, they has just started. I've not done a lot of reading, but the little reading I've done, I don't think I've read anything rich like the document Moses Magoko presented.
Rich in what exactly?
Rich, like in content.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I've not read anything rich in content this year. We're talking about a 28-page document. But of course, the first 2 pages are letters. One of those letters is one written to the Speaker of Parliament, like Andrew mentioned earlier, on the 9th of January. It is the same letter that was later written to the General Secretary of the National Council of Sports, Dr. Bernard Patrick Ogwell, on the 28th. To be precise, that meeting, the video we just watched, happened last week on Tuesday, which was the 27th of February. Now, of course, that's the cover letter. Now, the document of 26 pages has FUFA, I don't think they were even requesting, has FUFA telling government what they should be doing if the game of football is to grow, to get to the level of Morocco, of South Africa, of Tanzania, Senegal, or any other. And in this case, the national team. What needs to be done for the national team to be competitive. And everything is summed up in FUFA requesting a government to fund these activities to a tune of 294 billion Ugandan shillings for the next 4 cycles of the financial years. They are talking about that budget from the 2026-2027 financial year all the way to the 2029-2030 financial year. And they have gone ahead and broken down what they feel should be done and what government should be funding so that the national football team, the Uganda Cranes, can be competitive to the level of Senegal, to the level of Morocco, to the level of Nigeria, to the level of Egypt, and stuff like that. Most of the things they mention in this document are things that I'm well aware that are already being funded by the International Football Body, FIFA, because they have different programs where they go ahead to fund different projects, and Uganda has been privileged to be under that kind of arrangement. Of course, The other, FUFA is also asking the government of Uganda to fund some of the projects that they started and own privately 100%, like the FUFA media services. FUFA wants the government of Uganda to fund activities of FUFA media services. FUFA media services, these are two entities, FUFA TV and FUFA Radio. We all remember how FUFA Radio started. It is a gold project. I think it was our second gold project by FIFA, if I'm not mistaken. So in a nutshell, that is what they're asking government to do. Of course, at a later stage, you shall go through the budget, because the document, I said, it was very rich. They had the courtesy of breaking down how they want this money to be spent at every level. But also the other highlight maybe we can talk about is the fact that there are so many things that FUFA want to do that are already being done or handled by National Council of Sports, who in this case are the regulator of government transport in this country. For instance, FUFA wants government of Uganda to avail money to them to be in charge of building, constructing and renovating sports facilities or football facilities in this country, from international facilities all the way to the lowest level. And they have also put budgets in that, in dollars, how much they need for each facility to be constructed in the next 4 years, just to make sure that the national football team is very competitive at the level of Nigeria, Morocco, Ghana, Senegal, and all the others.
There's some good things in this proposal, like the funding of clubs, because you see there's no national team if you have no clubs.
Yeah, but that's a story that has been around for a while.
Yeah, so why I say there are a few good things, but for me, again, like the league format, it is the spirit with which, because when you look at this document and the figures and how they're broken down,
Andrew, can I interject a little bit, just so that we don't lose track of the conversation? Clive, if you have a bit of figures, I know you've spoken about a few things in there. Can you take us through the figures for things, some standout things that are included in that document, and the figures that are indicated for things like, because I know there is things like the VAR, I know there is things like club activities, I know there is things like facilities, I know there is things like mass football and academies, and stuff like that, naturalization of players of Ugandan descent. Can you just give us that little breakdown so that when Andrew starts to speak about how important clubs are to the national team, we know what figures are contained in that document for a particular cause? For
starters, the breakdown has been categorized in categories. There's category 1, category 2, category 3, and stuff like that. Now, category 1 has the naturalization of players with Ugandan descent. This is a short term for 2027, and they need money availed that is close to 1 billion Ugandan shillings for this financial year, and the coming financial year, 2026-2027, and then an extra 500 million Ugandan shillings for the financial year 2027-2028. Okay. They want money availed for mass football. This money has been broken down in 4 different financial years, from 2026 to 2027, then 2029-2030, and they are asking for 5 billion Ugandan shillings for every year for activities to do with mass football. FUFA is asking for 3.5 billion Ugandan shillings for 4 different financial years for elite path development. This includes academies and stuff like that. This is now in category 2. They're also asking for 1.4 billion Uganda shillings for the next for each of the next financial years for national football. For organization of youth competitions. They are asking for 7.5 billion Uganda shillings for each of the next financial years, and this is meant for national football academy structure. I know for a fact that FUFA has submitted their bid to FIFA to fund a national academy. Okay, that is subject to approval, but they have submitted because FIFA has that project where they are going to be building national academies in different countries, which they will be financing and actually also paying the personnel. And in total, that goes down to about 21 billion, roughly 21 billion Uganda shillings for each of the next financial years. This seems the best, I think, item in this document is FUFA asking for 15 billion Uganda shillings for the capitalization of FUFA TV. This is a one-off. They're also asking for 8 billion Uganda shillings for the 2027-28 financial year for video assistant referee equipment. So stadiums like Kacheka will have VR. FUFA is asking FUFA is asking the government of Uganda to fund them 16 billion Uganda shillings for 3 different financial years for sports infrastructure. Those are some of the things, and of course they're asking for balls for each village. They want to be buying balls for each village, and the costing is about 1.8 billion Uganda shillings. They're talking about balls for each primary school. Still, last year I attended a FIFA program in Injeru where I think football for schools or something that where FIFA was donating 65,000 balls to FUFA to distribute to primary schools across the country. So I don't know why they're asking the government of Uganda for money for the same.
Because FIFA doesn't supply jersey.
Okay. They're asking for facilitation to FUFA district scouts. They want a scout in each district of Uganda, and they want the government of Uganda to facilitate the activities of that scout and the salary for that scout. There is a 1 quality pitch per district. FUFA wants to be in charge of building pitches in all the districts of Uganda. I don't know how many we have. You're talking about anyway, the things are many that they want: salaries and wages.
Clive, I really thought you would pick out the main ones we discussed. So
I picked out the main ones, but probably also there's another that will be of interest. For instance, FUFA wants to build stadiums, different categories of stadiums in Uganda. They want to build 4 international stadiums. One of those will be in Jinja. They want to build 10 stadiums in 10 cities. These cities are Masaka, Arua, Gulu, Soroti, Mbale, Fort Portal, Masaka, Entebbe. They want to build 19 stadiums in different provinces: Tororo, Kabare, Kasese, Luwero, Lugazi, Mubende, Moroto. They want to build 10 stadiums in the 5 divisions of Kampala. So they want to build a stadium. They want to build 2 stadiums in each of the 5 divisions in Kampala. They want to build a stadium, a category 1-2 stadium in each of the 135 districts in Uganda. They want to build 343 stadiums in counties and municipalities. They want to build 2,045 stadiums in sub-county and town councils.
Live.
They want to, okay, I'm winding up. They want to build 10,595 stadiums in parishes, and they want to build 70,626 stadiums in villages and cells across the country. Do you know the budget for that?
We might have more stadiums.
For the international stadiums, the 4 international stadiums in dollars, FUFA is asking the government of Uganda to give them $130 million for the 4 international stadiums. For the stadiums in the cities, the 10 cities, FUFA is asking the government of Uganda to give them $10 million. And for the provinces, FUFA is asking the government of Uganda to give them $3 million. Then for the divisions of Kampala, $3 million. For the districts, $1.5 million.
Clive, hold it right there.
Okay.
Hold it right there.
You asked for
This is why it didn't go through NCS. Clearly.
I think you believe NCS would have interest beyond just football.
Maybe also just to give you an update that the should have been the other week, not this past week, the other week. We had a press conference in Lugogo where the NCS General Secretary, Bernard Patrick Ogwell, was also giving us an update on what they are doing as NCS, especially when it comes to sports facilities in the country. And some of the updates he gave, they had plans of having different sports facilities beyond the Africa Cup of Nations that are being built in the different regions of the country. And the
which FIFA wants to do.
Exactly, because the sports facilities we were talking about was like they are not only for football, but for different sports disciplines.
Okay, so Emanzi, you hear those figures.
Yeah.
What's going through your mind?
No, I was actually struggling to count the stadiums because it looks like we shall have a stadium every 2 kilometers in this country. But like Andrew said, clearly there's no way they would have gone through NCS and they take up this to present it to Parliament, because the figures that are being talked about, even Ugandan sport, if you look at every other sport, I think it sounds like wishful thinking that we'll have a budget that goes to that tune. But of course, not to say that there's no money in Uganda, the money is there. But when you look at, of course, Engineer Moses Magugu has used his position because he sits in that committee and is able to present this. And then I'm sure his mind goes to the FUFA president, and it's all about football. Talking about ridiculous figures, and they're all addressing one problem, that is football. But there's more to life in this country than just football. Even in sports, there are more sports disciplines that would fight to be even where FUFA is at the moment. So you cannot fault him for thinking about his docket because he's a FUFA president. But when you look at things with a bigger perspective, as the FUFA president who sits in Parliament, is a member of Parliament, I don't think, for example, all the people that voted him to go to Parliament are all interested in football. I think there are other things that people from Budiope also like that are not captured by this document. So it's good if you have such reasoning that you want that number of stadiums, but one of the things that the ministry is addressing that we all appreciate at the moment is that Uganda is getting infrastructure. When you look at sports infrastructure, if Hoima is done, if Akibwa is done, if Nambole is redone, we have Nachivubo, and in a few years we might have more facilities than we can actually use in this country. So to bring it as a unique idea that FUFA wants to concentrate on building sports facilities, I don't know what exactly that is leading to, because we already, the conversation that we have now is that government is finally serious with putting up these facilities, and there is no need for FUFA to also engage in the same. And then the issue of the other things that sound good, when you talk about distributing balls to the different parishes, almost every village, it's a good thing, but like Clive mentioned, there are some of these projects that are already running, and it looks like you're going to have maybe funds directly to the same problem, yet you still have more areas that have to be covered. So I would want to see where this ends. I think all agree is that this being Uganda, do not be shocked if the things go through, or do not ask yourself why he did not want to use the straight line. That if you try to follow traffic rules in Kampala, you might sleep on the road. You see the other ones taking shortcuts and they are moving. The officers are not stopping them. So
until you get out of the line and the officer says
exactly. And for me, I think I've said this time and again that one of my biggest, Mr. Moses Magogo, when he's speaking, he's a joy to listen to. I mean, when he starts speaking, you don't want him to stop. He's a joy to listen to. But one of my biggest disappointments for me with him is his failure to walk the talk. On so many occasions, he says so many beautiful things, but he never walks the talk. Because there are things that he is talking about in this document that in the past he has tried, or his government or executive has tried to implement with the help and support of FIFA, but they have failed to be sustained. For me, one of those is the FUFA Juniors League that started a couple of years ago with funding from FIFA coming in, equipment, jerseys, the balls, the shoes and that. And there was even an arrangement of paying these coaches a monthly salary. It should have been about $100 or $150 or something like that. And it started very rich. By the second season, teams like there were actually even an arrangement to facilitate these junior teams to go for away games. By the second or third season, teams didn't have equipment. Teams couldn't afford transport to travel. This is a project, this is a FIFA-funded project. The teams could not get transport to travel for away games. Mbarara City one time showed up, Mbarara City junior team at one time showed up for a game against the Wakiso Giants junior team in Kabuja without jerseys. The game had to go on with one team wearing jerseys and the other team wasn't wearing jerseys, like how it used to be in the villages growing up. Things like those. So there are so many things that have been around and, like I've said, funded by FIFA, but they have failed to move and grow, because you thought that project, especially the FUFA Juniors League, is one project that by now would have taken this continent or even region by storm. KCCFC, about 2, 3 or 4 seasons later, they were able to promote around 6 or 7 boys from the FUFA Juniors team to their senior team. One of those boys today is Alan Okelo. People believe he's the best footballer in the country. The other is Mustafa Chiza. You still have the Chais around, the Magambo and stuff like that. And all these other teams, Bull, URA and the others, all these teams have players who are products of the FUFA Juniors League. So if FUFA had stuck to the script with FIFA and stuff like that, I mean, how many teams would be producing players, or how many products of the FUFA Juniors League we would be having? But a couple of seasons later, they abandon everything and they leave it up to the clubs to take care of themselves and stuff like that, and they are struggling. I don't know if that funding from FIFA stopped coming. I believe it is still coming, but we don't know what it is doing at the moment.
Okay.
I'd love to build on to
Please.
what Clive just said. And a project funded by FIFA, stalling without any clear explanation, because it's easy if it's not there, you explain to people, communication. Reading this whole beautiful thing and the figures, for me, the one question that just sticks out immediately is, do the people asking for these amounts of taxpayers' money have the integrity to do with that money what they're asking it for? Also, when you look at it and dig deeper, there are some things that have a trail. FUFA Media Service says, okay, it wasn't there. It was there, but not under those names until 1-2 years ago. Previously, that company belonged to Moses Magogo and a few other individuals under Satellite Plus Systems at URSB. How it transmuted into FUFA Media Services, now apparently 100% FUFA owned. We don't know. Perhaps the regulators who are trying to make decisions, those are the things they need to follow. Then when you look at Janzi and all these figures of balls in villages and all the money being collected, it's literally money going to pay themselves. So you get into all that and question, wait a minute, you are getting from here to here, and there's no clear qualification of how things became what they are. So FUFA are becoming this huge supermarket that deals in different merchandise from all corners. They've lost their niche, they've lost their way in trying to do everything.
And they're blaming other things for the failure of the national team to perform.
So you look at all these things and you are like, where's this coming from? Where's the faith? What are they positioning themselves for? This is going to become like a government whereby someone is voted out but they're still in charge. Because they have interests. They've planted different goalposts to keep receiving whatever falls out. And that's how they ensure the system stays, it doesn't change. That's why you're having, there's not been any contest for presidency since Magogo came to office. It's always unopposed. I mean, it's come through to the general elections as you've seen it. It's now a formula, it's a formula. So you wonder, you think these are things being done for the country, but people are positioning themselves to not take FIFA money, I don't mind, but taxpayers' money. That's where an issue comes. Do you have the integrity to actually carry out this process and deliver to the people who have given you the money? We'll get to the club thing, you know, the club thing in a minute. I don't want to get there. But the whole point is, for me, there's a trail that actually suggests you don't have the integrity to take this money and then deliver the services you claim. When you also read Magogo, when he was here, he told us about the tactical master plan. Remember it?
Yes.
Who has a copy of the technical master
plan?
Fully, when they were launching, celebrating 100 years.
Who has a copy?
Should be there. But just know whatever is in that is also under this proposal to be funded fully by this whole arrangement. So we need to get into the details and see all this money you're asking it, flowery words, statements, proposal, but who is getting the money?
I'll give you another example.
Yeah.
When FUFA was forcing the new league formats down our throats, you remember all the beautiful things they were saying around it, the promotion, the marketing and everything. They had TikTokers, they had influencers, like they were selling a good story of how the league is going to be the thing.
And they did everything we've been crying for.
Exactly.
Just a minute.
Did they or they promised? Okay, they did for the
the promotion using
for the
TikTokers and influencers.
They did for the double header in Ambole. So when the First Lady, who is also the Minister of Education and Sports, told them to put it out and go back to the old format. If you watched that press conference, the FUFA president came out and said that they were going to use one of the lower leagues as a pilot project to see how this eventually is going to work. And the lower league they chose was the Kampala Regional League. How often do you hear about the Kampala Regional League? Because if what the FUFA president and team promised that this is what the Uganda Premier League was going to be under the new league format, and now they are using the Kampala Regional League as the pilot project, then why aren't we seeing all that? The promotion, the marketing, the TikTokers, the influencers. Like right now, the Kampala Regional League should be the most talked about sports event in the country, but we don't hear anything about it. At the start, games were live on TV. I don't know if games are still live on TV. I'm told sometimes they even play at 10 a.m. So that is just an example from the Juniors League of what, you're promising heaven and earth in this document. You're asking money, promising heaven and earth in this document. But what are the chances that you are going to walk the talk? Okay. Because they never walk the talk.
Yeah. Okay. Like Andrew did hint, Clive, I'm going to ask that we get to the suggestions part that has the issue to do with the institutional clubs, because that's also something that has, caused a lot of debate, because when you speak about institutional clubs, we have quite a number of them, about 8 in the Uganda Premier League, if my mind serves me right. So I'm going to get to that in just a bit. But again, just to try and squeeze out, and I'm using the word squeeze out very carefully, because we have to. Is there a little bit of positivity from that clash we saw in Parliament? Because maybe we needed it.
Yeah, it has us talking. It has us talking. Otherwise,
no, and it doesn't.
Let me tell you. Okay, one. Imagine a picture of a kid being caught red-handed in a bowl of sugar, with the lips full of sugar, and then you're told stop and take the sugar the right way. That's what Peter Gwang did during that committee. Because if he hadn't stopped the kid from immersing itself in the sugar, things could perhaps have proceeded to another level. So positivity for me is, one, it exposed. We already knew the differences, but now it exposed them, and now we are getting to dig deeper into the document to see what actually is in there, and to also alert the stakeholders, both in government and the private sector, to say, hey, wait a minute, we need to take a deeper look at this. Before we pass it, before it goes on to the next levels, what is it? In whose interest is it? So we are now discussing it. For me, that's the positivity.
And Andrew, because all this happened ahead of AFCON 2027.
Yeah.
And I can authoritatively say tonight, on the 2nd of February, that as long as NCS and the government of Uganda is at the forefront of preparing or running activities ahead of the Africa Cup of Nations, like it should be, there's not going to be any one time these two entities agree to push in the same direction.
And that's not what I'm calling for. I'm just saying Ugandans can now see.
But we need it.
Yeah.
We've not had anything in a long time, or we've not had an opportunity in a long time for Ugandans to come on board together and move in one direction as a country, as a community. This is the only opportunity we have as a country. It's the only opportunity we will ever have in our lifetime to all of us push in the same direction. And the people at the top who are supposed to ensure that it happens are not ready to get on the same round table, agree. Why? Because one person believes, I brought AFCON to East Africa, I brought AFCON to Uganda, I should be at the forefront of this, but all of a sudden you took it away from me, now you're running the show and stuff like that. That is what I'm told in the meeting, the meeting of the 28th, that happened at National Council of Sports. Some officials from FUFA had the audacity of telling the officials of National Council why they wanted this to be implemented now and why they wanted NCS to push this. They had the audacity to actually tell them, but we are football.
Yeah.
Like, we are football. So forget rugby, forget athletics, forget basketball, forget boxing. We are football. Whatever you're doing, pause and make sure that this goes where it has to go, because what we want, we always get. And with that mindset, and mentality.
But also, I think when I say positivity, what I meant is that sometimes it might take this coming out to the public domain for it to be sorted. Otherwise, if it was kept in the back, this grumbling could go on, you know, and, for quite some time, maybe. And I know it can go on.
If you could, but just give me a chance. As for Clive's worry, but I've since stopped worrying about being in the same direction. There is money to be made and eaten for AFCON 2027. So no one is going to jump out of ship because we are not in the same direction. Everyone will have to fix themselves in because there is money to be eaten. So FUFA will come, see where they can toe the line, and NCS and the government for the event to happen. So there is money. Forget that the disagreements will make sure the tournament or whatever doesn't happen. Now, when it comes to the positivity for me, we've always argued that you need the league for the national team. When I see some 9 billion, where each club, I think, gets 500 million per year, that's a positive. When you look at arguing for a consolidated fund to actually provide for sport, now here, of course, is talking football, me, I'll go sport. That's something. For example, betting companies argued and even suggested to government that from that money that you take from betting to one pool, make sure there's a portion for sport, but it's not the case. It just goes to one pool, you know, the roads, hospitals, name it. So that is a positive. And then when you come to the modes, the three different ways of funding this whole thing, government through every financial year allocating funds. Then you have state-owned enterprises. The Bank of Uganda's name it, and then privately owned enterprises. Now, the state-owned, it's bringing me into our point, are being asked, for example, KCCA, URA, discard what you have, and...
Can Clive read it for us so that we have it clearly?
Yeah, page 26 under the subtitle conclusion, that is point 4. It says all state-owned enterprises are listed in table 6 with effect from the 2026-2027 financial year. For those already owning and running clubs to stop owning and running football clubs, but instead avail without reduction the funds for sports to finance one chosen community club of their choice, where the community club will in return provide the intended objectives of the respective state-owned enterprise. For those that are not already owning and running clubs, each provides resources of not less than 500 million Uganda shillings to finance at least one community club that is not already being financed by another state-owned enterprise.
Okay.
Yeah.
Institutional clubs, there you have it. We have about 8 of them. KCCA, URA, Maroons, Police, UPDF, NEC, UPPC.
And so what now this document means, that if, let's say it is approved tomorrow,
all those clubs cease to exist.
This is the last season they cease to exist.
Yes. now, that's radical. Now, for me, I'd rather take the approach of Agre Ashaba, who we had here last week, of saying, just get away from formulating, new regulations, policy. Now, KCCA allow a private enterprise to take it up and run it independent of City Hall or anything. Put in the money, agree on how to...
But it's not being run by City Hall.
No, what I mean, Clive, that there's a secretariat at KCA, headed by a CEO.
But there's a board above the CEO.
Yes, but they all report back
to the board.
Who releases money? City Hall. Now this time around, make it change policy. Yes, City Hall still on somewhere above, but there's a completely another arrangement, private, which also makes money from the club.
And why I want to disagree with you, the FUFA president did supplement on this point somewhere in those funny WhatsApp groups where he was trying to explain, and he used a term that the people running these football clubs don't have the speciality to run these football clubs, which I find very disrespectful. I'll give you an example. The Uganda Premier League started in 1968, if I'm around there. Then Prisons, now Maroons, were the inaugural winners of that league. They later defended it. That team has been around since. There are times when they have gone, they have been relegated, they come back. So for an institution to sustain a football club for all those years, you cannot tell me they don't have the speciality.
I think it's the language.
And that's where the problem is. KCCFC are celebrating 63 years, if I'm not mistaken. They are the second most successful football club in this country, with 13 league titles, 10 Uganda Cups, 2 Sekafa titles. They have been on the continent. They have sold players outside this country, just like all those other teams. Over the years, they have produced players who have been the face of Ugandan football. And for 63 years, someone has the audacity to say that this club should cease to exist because the people running it don't have the speciality to run the institution. Police Football Club has been around for all those years. They also, I think, part of the league coming up and stuff like that. Okay, you have some institutional clubs that are struggling, but they also had their years when they were dominating Ugandan football. So you cannot just wake up out of nowhere and say that the people running these football clubs don't have the specialty to run these football clubs.
And tell you
the community clubs you're advocating for have proved time and again that the people running them don't have the specialty to be run. And you're telling us institutional clubs should cease to exist, and community clubs are the in thing that we should be running. I mean, we can give a list of institutional community clubs in this country that we thought would be up there, and they have completely failed. Even with all the indicators that they have what it takes to be run properly and dominate Ugandan football, they have failed.
Gentlemen, hold it right there, because while we discuss this, there is an explanation from what Clive calls the funny WhatsApp groups, from the FUFA president himself, Engineer Moses Magogo, speaking about that particular suggestion from FUFA for all these institutional clubs to be normal, not owning clubs anymore, and instead get that money, the budget they've been using to run these clubs, and invest it into community clubs. Here is the FUFA president.
Okay, thank you so much. I will start on the issue of that FUFA wants to abolish institutional clubs. That is not correct. Our proposal is very clear. We are saying that in many countries where the leagues are strong, we have studied how their funding models are, and we have a hollow template which I can share here. What happens in Egypt, what happens in South Africa, what happens in these countries where the leagues are thriving, in Africa at least. And we have realized that there's a source of funding that these clubs use that eventually for us here, we don't position well, yet we also have it. To be more specific, Uganda has so many what we call state-owned enterprises, very many. And I'm going to post here a list of some of them we have put in that document. So our suggestion is that instead of them running and owning football clubs, which is not their specialty, they should instead redirect those resources into community clubs. And our proposal is that in addition to the already existing models, similar models, Express, KCC, Vira, Chitara, and any club that wishes to adopt, and of course those ones also have to adopt the proper community club setup. Then we would have at least a community club in each of the 18 provinces of Uganda that a state enterprise can pick on and finance. This will spread the talent identification, talent development, and of course also the value of the league. Now, that does not mean that FUFA is saying they should abolish institutional clubs, but we are saying state-owned enterprises should instead finance community clubs, so that that money, instead of having a club without funds, instead it can finance a club that has funds, and at the end of the day, the enterprise will get what it wants, and also the fans get what they want, and football benefits.
Okay, there you have there you have it. There you have it. An explanation from the FUFA president. I just need someone to help me. I think my English levels are low. How different is it
now,
from what he's saying and what we just said?
I just asked you how many minutes is that clip. He has just said FUFA has not abolished institutional clubs, but they should instead send that money to any community club of their choice. So when that happens, does that institutional club still exist? So Moses Magogo is our friend John Vianney Nsimbe several years ago wrote an article in the Weekly Observer. He was responding to, remember the FSL standoff? And Vianney wrote a piece with a headline that Charles Bakabulindi was the minister at the time. The headline read, Bakabulindi spoke but said nothing. And that's that audio.
And on that note, we're going to take a very short break. When we do return, the discussion definitely does go on. It's hot in here. We need some AC. Guys, we need some AC. We're taking a break, but we'll be back in a bit. All right, thank you so very much for staying with us here on NTV Sport Knights. My name is Gistin. We do this every Monday from 10 p.m. all the way to midnight, together with the Manzi, Andrew, and Clive, going through the biggest talking points from the week in the world of sport. Like today, the biggest discussion being around that back and forth between the FUFA president and the State Minister for Sport, Honorable Peter Ogwang, but most importantly, also getting to unravel the numbers and monies involved in that document that the FUFA president attempted to present before the Parliamentary Committee of Education and Sports. And just before we took the break, we had played that audio from the FUFA president trying to explain the suggestion contained in that document for the institutional clubs or institutions of government to stop owning clubs and rather get that money and invest it in a community club. And Clive and Andrew had made points about, the community clubs that started out and where they are now and everything else. And Emanzi, I want to bring you in. You have heard the FUFA president. You've had his explanation. Have you? Or do you want us to play it again?
No, I've heard, and I think what's in the document is really enough. I would take that he's looking at the community-based clubs as that formula having worked elsewhere. When you look at teams or in other countries, they are not, you will not find municipality teams or like say KCCA or NEC or UPDF. It's mainly teams that are from the different regions. If you use the example of the Premier League, you know that you have the teams from Manchester, you have those that are in London, and they are mainly community clubs. And when you look at how they do their things, their things, you would say they are very successful. But there are so many things that are involved, and not just them being community clubs. We have several here that have come up and died a natural death, even when they are not institutional clubs. So one thing Andrew hinted on is the issue of language that maybe the FUFA president and his people use. And the other thing that worries me is the speed or the pace at which he wants to do his things. That you talked about the format, and he wanted it done instantly. Now you're talking about this, and he's not saying we are planning for the next 10 years. He wants it done right now. And you have to appreciate the institutional clubs that are around. I think it's just a matter of how the game is run or how these things are done. If you look at the different countries around us, you have institutional clubs that are actually the most successful. When you talk about what happens on the pitch, talk about paying players and everything that you can mention about clubs. You have institutional clubs that are doing it much better than any other team that you're looking at. So I think it's about how we do our things as the sporting community and how organized we are. So for you to wake up and say we should not have URA next season, you know, he's not saying in 10 years, but next season. I think that it's a bit disrespectful to the people that are investing in sport, because there are very many that take money off their budgets. I mean, why would URA even have to be in football? I think they can exist without having a football club. URA, the authority, I mean. You would still pay tax, and there's not much that would change. But they've decided to invest in a football club, not even any other sport, but football. So I think that's a bit disrespectful to them. You talk about NEC, you talk about UPPC, who are now second in the league. I think all these have done their part. So you can look at how maybe to broaden the base and see how to encourage more community clubs. Also, you don't have to chase these teams away. You can wake up one day and you do not have an institutional club in the league, maybe because the community clubs are strong and they have gained promotion. These ones have been relegated, that you do not have to come and push them out. I think there is a sporting way that this can be done. Onduparaka were a community club and they were here, but they are not in the league anymore. And their relegation has nothing to do with them being a community club or institutional club. So I think there are many things that we've got to focus on. If you talk about maybe KCCA supporting other teams, it could be understandable, but there are so many others that do not have teams. Maybe you focus on those and say, if you're Umeme and you do not, if you're not Umeme anymore, it's now UEDCL. If you do not have a football club, maybe you reach out to them and see how to interest them to support a community club. But these proposals have to be presented in a respectable manner. Not you coming and you want to say that we are the authority now and this is what you are saying, it should start tomorrow. I don't think so, because if you talk about 8 institutional clubs that we have in the league, for example, and we are talking about just football, because some stretch to other sports disciplines that of course he didn't capture in this, he's only focusing on football. So if you look at it from that perspective, I think you believe that there are so many institutions that we should be grateful for. KCCA do not have to own these sports teams. They would still exist, they would still collect taxes from people and just go on about their business. But they have decided to invest some money in football. Not just and I think we have, and other sports, we have to be thankful and maybe encourage them to even invest a lot more, because for them they have the reach, they have the finances that these other clubs would not actually access. Okay, and Andrew, as we conclude this one, I need you to fill me in on what you make of all this, including that explanation. And while you do that, Clive, I'll request that you also get us that part of the document that has where competitions are listed. I don't remember what it was about. I think is where that document speaks about the different competitions, right? The big league is mentioned, and I didn't seem to see the Uganda Premier League on that list of the different competitions and how much they want government to contribute. So while Clive gets us that, Andrew, let's have your final comments on this whole document and this whole thing, and then we'll get to Clive.
My final comments. One, I'm happy when I hear there is, proposed funding of the league, youth football as well. But when you critically look at this document, from the youth, name it, to all the way to the top, over time, we see even with the funding from FIFA, this federation is known for creating things to ensure there's accountability. So some of these things in this proposal for me, actually, if this proposal was to be passed tomorrow, FIFA have all the other money, even from FIFA and CAF, to themselves to do whatever they want. So literally, everything has been sorted. Now, that's not a bad thing. But again, I go back to the question of integrity. You have a proven track record of going wrong or failing to deliver where there's public funding, but also where there is, remember the 2014 tickets, when tickets were supposed to be sold at an affordable rate to Ugandans, you sell them, and then you go into the Junior League funded by FIFA that Clive talks about. It diminishes without a clear notice of how it's happening. And then the details of the FUFA media services, you know, the Janzi ball and balls being delivered all over the country. So what I see is individuals at FUFA positioning themselves for a windfall. That if this was to be passed tomorrow, you could arguably say a good chunk, a great chunk of this money will go to individual interests rather than the game.
Okay, Clive, did you find that list?
Yeah, they have broken down because they need 34 billion, 610 million Uganda shillings from the government of Uganda to fund competition activities. And
club competition activities.
Club competitions. And 1 billion, they want 1 billion every year allocated to pricing. I think the different cash prizes for the different leagues. They're talking about insurance for about 800 footballers every season. They're talking about production costs. I think that's for FUFA media services. They're talking about referees. About 100 referees to accommodate for every year. They are talking about competition organization support, organizing support. They are talking about kits. They want the government of Uganda to avail 50 million shillings every year for kits. Club continental support. This is 3. So I think Confederations Cup, Champions League, and the Women's Champions League. So they want the government of Uganda to avail 350 million Uganda shillings every year that supports clubs that play on the continent. They want the government of Uganda to avail 1 billion Uganda shillings every year for the FUFA Big League, 1 billion Uganda shillings for the FUFA Women's Super League, 500 million Uganda shillings for Club Grants Community Clubs Fund. They want 500 million Uganda shillings every year for Club Grants UPL Clubs Fund. Then they want 1.5 billion Uganda shillings for capacity building every year, and 50 million Uganda shillings every year for media.
Where is the Uganda Premier League?
9 billion.
I think the other clubs that they want
UPL.
Only those teams that will be representing on the continent are the ones that they want.
The UPL is not captured
accommodated
on that list.
No, there's a list whereby each year they get 500 million per club, UPL, which is 9 billion over 4 years. It's somewhere on that list towards the end.
That list that has the club competitions, we'll have to find that one. But anyway, taking some of the comments that are coming through, quite often we tend to forget people on Facebook. This time around, no. So we have Kaizi Fakimu, who says we should learn how to agree in a disagreement. We have Waiswa Tom, who says it's simply a battle of supremacy. Politics aside, engineer must know that he works under ministry mandated to give and all check expenditure. But to him, I think he thinks otherwise. Whatever is added, I will not be able to read that. We have Michael Chuanka, who says you can get a better alignment while dealing with, goodness me. Right. Kabara Joseph says let the procedures be followed. We have Amoris, who says it's all about AFCON deals of money, like Andrew said earlier on. Chris Etosot says stop the corruption. We have MK Elvis, who says whatever the clash is, as it is always happens in Uganda, Ugandan football and Pamoja itself have to be off the picture. Okay, Robert Baluku says the FUFA president, Engineer Moses Magogo, lacks ethics and is too monitory. We have Saku Shafiq, who says all of them should resign. I'll conclude with Maurice Marvin, who says Honorable Moses Magogo should consider his image that he has built for all these years. We know power is sweet, but sometimes it's illusional if mismanaged. Okay, those are the comments from Facebook, and I will try and get some comments from X as well, starting off with Josh Kimmich, who says, I think Magogo wants to host the next World Cup, of which I don't see it happening. But we have Kasuku Idrisa, who says the FUFA president should swallow the pride and understand that he's not the most. My Aunt Ronald says, what does the law say? The FUFA president has been, goodness Lord. listen up.
Just to agree with...
Just a minute, Andrew. We need to close this one off. We have just about 7 minutes left to close this show. So just a minute. So you conclude that. I'm giving you seconds to wrap it up, and then we can get into the predictions. Yeah. What did he say?
Oh, okay.
I gave you seconds. Your seconds are almost done.
No, I was actually, I think, correcting something. The fund I was talking about is actually a grant, a one-off.
Yes.
Not necessarily like periodical.
Funding activities.
Again, which comes back to the spirit with which this is being done. And the spirit is, remember, you chased away the league format, so you're not rewarded in this new arrangement as well.
You want a competitive league for your national team to be competitive at the level of Morocco, Senegal, Ghana, Nigeria, and others. But your document, your very rich, beautiful document, does not want UPL clubs to be accommodated beyond facilitating them to play.
They wanted to own UPL with the format and the monies. You guys just sit away. So now, as you can see, everything in this is FA related.
You guys, you make such a document and ignore the country's top flight league.
Yeah.
Yet the point of this document, like we did say, is to make sure the national football team, the Ghana Cranes, are competitive.
But again, the point in the letter that he raised when the president questioned the clubs being funded, and the only representation there is community clubs in Magogo's and FUFA's document. So the rest of the clubs you fend for yourselves.
All right, gentlemen. We'll pause it right there for tonight.